and Brian Bennett, who is from Tavistock Club, but he's representing Beaumont today.
Rotarians, how do we greet our guests? And with that, can we ask our guests to lead us to the buffet table?
I don't know. Sure.
You gotta be something.
I can do it.
Comment, Patrick's treating as well.
You can't have a coup, that's not good.
I wanted to go Santa Fe.
In the last 2 weeks, the insurance company called back. They have to tell you in the car.
So I was with them when you came to Westmount at Santa Fe. 2010. I know. The guy Yeah, I know. He's got black dogs.
I know that's a big
Were you here last year?
And again.
And Brian, I'm Allison. Nice to see you. Guys have lunch? Spain, Morocco,
Yeah, I was gonna ask when now that you're back from all your gals.
The timing is, depends what you need, like, still thinking.
Well, not that so much, but yes. Yeah, so we're good with that now. She's settled in. The first couple of weeks, I think, were a little hard because she was so used to her other job. So I guess it varies from not 20 hours a day.
Yeah.
You know, so I think it took her a bit of time to settle, but yeah, but I think she's doing well and seems like she's enjoying it. You know, I need to put a risk management plan. We're trying to get the strategic plan.
Leo would be great. You'd like to stay on someone. I just
Big strategies. I've got them. We have a software program.
on a personal side, no one wants to try. No, we're all by our loans. Just wait for you to come along.
Trying to figure out some of our definitions and trying to figure out strategies.
We come from the same place.
Same building?
We come to the same place.
So we're all not
leaving.
Never goes to
Yeah.
He's only got a couple months to go though.
Is it something, and then the rest time period, like if I talk to you and I'm not doing what you want, is that what we're
Someone fill in?
Yeah, I mean, I think if I showed it to you, we'd talk about what it was.
I stood there and thanked people.
Yeah, I've done a couple of those for.
I'm already opening an announcement and thanks for filling in.
Make sure you have all the policies and protocols in place and where.
Yeah, so yeah, so we've got like a really comprehensive pool of risk review.
And I drive right past Jake Thomas on the way to work. Hyundai dealership right on the corner. It's a win. You can take be here early.
So we tried to find like sort of our top 20 things without getting into because we were pretty okay. It's where is this low risk? What do we trying to identify and only deal with those because everything, you know, there's just so much else. But some of it now is identifying how the risk is because we're
I think somebody asked about geese the other day, and like, yeah, that's what they were saying. They were talking geese. No, a lot of them, and I'm not sure how that works in terms of evolution. Do the offspring forget? Do they not have any kind of memory about how it goes out? Rural geese, the rural geese stay here. The rural, that's where the urban geese stay here.
But Ottawa, too.
I know that one. I don't know what the geese will stay there.
right during the tulip festival, and you walk around and I didn't know there were this many kinds of tulips.
No, that's exactly, yeah. I went once, I was on a
Oh,
trip.
man, there's some big
Took
flowers.
every ounce of energy.
For some reason,
that area, right?
they hang around you Waterloo. Like thousands and thousands
Where,
of them.
you could
And
walk
every
in
once in a while they'll fly regulatory after us, right over our house.
Why would you want to come?
You know, it's like the sky is black.
So I did, only because I was.
So I don't know.
That was a couple weeks ago, yeah.
But one of the things I saw
It
was
was,
when we were there,
it was
they
good,
started
not bad.
to stagger tulips, so they put really colors and really shapes.
And this is a mass litter of crows.
And you get these different color combinations and things in the gardens, and it's beautiful.
Like, oh, Canadian. What's that?
Oh, yeah, right.
You know, regardless of when the festival is.
We started
How's your salt sales going, Andrew?
We lived there and then we stayed there for 3 nights and we drove up.
All that.
And they have
Some of them
a
are finding salt.
It's kind of gross.
Have you got salt back in stock?
What's it? One of them,
I got that
we
stuff
call it
that's
a
not
congress.
salt. That's supposed to
Is
be
it like
ice
flamingos?
filter.
Stuff like that. I mean, when you look up
I
different
got that
groups,
from Friday,
right?
but we ran out.
One of them's a congress, that one's one of the funniest. Well, the murder is kind of strange too, right?
There's a lot of sand around. I took my dog out yesterday and walked on the road. Half the way because of the
You would think that all birds could be flocks. You know, all animals could be birds. You'd think you'd be able to have all fish could be squirrels. Well, the thing is for the mammals,
We gotta do, we gotta do,
We're
yeah.
gonna have plus 14.
they'll use that for
Yeah, one day, melt everything, and then it'll all freeze up,
I
and
don't
then you'll
know.
have salt.
They could have just come up and said, look, if it's a mammal in the sea, if it's a feathered animal, they could have done that, but they didn't.
So there was a strike in Goddard, something like that?
It's they, it's them. The weather. That's why they and them is really a dirty program.
Really built up into.
That is so much fun.
Change the sentence around. So if you just change the sentence around, the sentence structure, Sandy pointed this out to me. She did a degree in English. It's, you want Canada to command respect in policies. Right? And so all you're doing is, you're saying command respect, all of us command, and all of us command, or command respect in all of us. So when you say we want to command respect in all of us, that is absolutely correct, right? And it's better than all our sons. Command respect in all our sons leaves out half the population. It's just because the sentence was written in that backwards, you know, they put the subject before the object or whatever in the first place. And so when they rewrote it, in order to not change it too much, they simply say, well, here's how the sentence should be if it's going to be written in that same backwards.
But this is what I hope.
You feel like one of the 3 little pigs. So is the leasing company doing
That's not going to get somebody.
Which
Did you do both, or did they make you sign up?
Really?
Take compensation and still.
Probably excited to be finished.
Overall, I think it's a very nice book. You know, when I listen to other countries' national anthems, mind you, you don't know what they say. They really are in the local language. I mean, it could be that the Swedish national anthem is really, truly beautiful. Who knows? most of them are kind of slightly militaristic in the way. Right, that part is a little bit kind of, back in the days when we all had to have our armies, right? You start to say it's not all about a military might, having pride in our country, what should the music feel like? Because the U.S. was certainly militaristic.
War of 1812. The guy that wrote it was in jail.
We weren't really thinking about 20 years ago. We were thinking about the next 5 years.
It's actually from a
Anyway,
British
he was really good. So
Yeah,
we needed
I
just
did hear
more
that.
labor. Yeah, I think I have
Well, community justice initiative does that exact thing. And
There's got to go for the city.
I'd like to hear this really briefly sung by a rowdy bunch of Brits in the pub.
111.
The one for the American National Anthem, the melody.
So I went with my niece up there.
Right number?
And she said, she needed her moving. Usually she'd be good travel companion for you one day.
I mean, look.
She's not very nice, but she's a good traveler.
America's deep back
She's
trouble.
good. And I really
Big
enjoyed
contender, huh?
Came from somebody named Neil.
I read 3 books.
He sent them to me yesterday.
Well,
Quite tremendous to help
the
those.
American Beautiful song is much more like
Yeah.
our Canadian national anthem feel.
Yeah. Martin, I miss Charlie. I missed
Whereas the
vicinity.
that's where they're
It's
flag.
like, wait a minute, what's this?
How important the flag over here. Yeah, I mean, when you're really trying to stir,
Of course,
you're
I
not
go
too
out of
much
town
for that national pride.
My sister invites me to dinner and some
The Americans love their flag.
like I think he let me on when he was
You go around the world and you'll see the flags at the airport that, people don't fly flags here. Whereas in the United States, in some areas, tons of flags all the time. And there are people, there's a guy out in Cross Hill, if you ever drove up to Animaze through the north here, the guy in Cross Hill has 2 flag workers. And he does it right. He's actually the only person I know that's right. The flags come down every day. They go up every day. Flies on a half mast with the problem. Yeah. It takes them down to this terrible. I mean, I see flags up here flying, becoming tattered and torn. It's like, it's like a if you're going to fly flags, do it right, or don't do it.
The only time I go is 7 hours. I've never defended a car. And I've never seen so many students because it was all really good. They were little. I'm there. Catch up with me. We met the mayor and the president. And
It says 2018.
that was the
Today, as in Wednesday.
Well, it's stressful.
I don't think I've ever paid attention.
You're watching this like
I haven't eaten in
I think it's the only thing we're waiting for now.
flavor.
Yeah, that's big. They tell you what they do.
Butter, you can
Okay. Yeah, that's right.
I know what it is.
I was feeling really good because I had to say I was
I'm pushing it now because it's almost a month. Almost 3. We're on the clock. And I don't want it to hit that occupancy date. So we're pushing it to that. Signs
We don't watch it.
we were talking about Capricorn Bay or something.
You're having decaf? Yeah, I gotta do the decaf. I'm finding even his homemade chocolate if I have any after dinner, I have squares and it's like fun. I wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning. The problem is, come 8 o'clock in the morning, I get dead. We had some
What is this
I guess we'll, while you're finishing your coffee and your dessert, we'll move along with our program here. Go through the announcements. Members' birthdays. Chris Wilkes is March 11th. Our own Chuck Thompson. Chuck, happy birthday for March the 15th. And not far behind is Rick Bolzon, March the 16th.
Really? Yes, unfortunately, that's not a birthday I care to, talk about.
Spouses' birthdays. Kelly Schluter, Jake Schramm's spouse, is March the 15th. I didn't see any anniversaries on the list today. But back on the date of March the 14th, 7 years ago, Jack Kinch joined our club.
Be a Jack.
The last other announcement is just a recap bingo for March 21st, which is Allison Scott, David Barth, and Julie Powell. I'll ask Brian Bennett to come up. He wanted a few words with our club. Brian? Well, then maybe we'll have Brad in. Brad, you wanted to say a few words to the club?
Just about the flag program. A number of you guys would have gotten an email who sold a flag back in May. So we're coming up for a renewal date. The last install will be May long weekend. So if you have received that email, a number of you have gotten back to me. Some are in the process of getting in touch with the people that they've sold the flag to. Just a reminder, the renewals is a huge portion. If we can get 90+% of renewals, that's huge for our club. And I'll let you know about kind of the upcoming goal for May long weekend. If we can all try to sell, one flag per person would be ideal. Maybe put your thinking caps on right now. To give you an idea, it's $100 for the 3 holidays. So if, let's say, 40 of us do it, that's an extra $4,000 for the club right away. We already have the supply, so yeah, it'll be great if everyone could try to do that.
Just a reminder, everyone, that that money is raised for the club without a license, so that we're not tied to where that money is used, much the same as we're not tied with the money that we raised from the Oktoberfest luncheon. However, that luncheon money is normally gone to the International Committee for our donations overseas, so that would give us a little bit more for that. Other news here I've got here is the Mayor's Dinner. The annual Mayor's Dinner is the 23rd, or the 32nd Mayor's Dinner on April the 13th. If you're interested in attending that, give me an email and we can book a table for that. Call upon Brian Bennett.
Mark, you want to drive me? This is the tag team. Thank you for giving us a minute here. Today we're representing the Westmount Club, which, if you don't know, is a satellite of the Waterloo Club now. We are running our second Trip of the Month lottery, There's cards on the table here. This lottery is done in cooperation and partnership actually with ICC, Interfaith Christian Counseling Center, and the proceeds from this lottery go to mental health in Wilmot region. They're very big in mental health support services, so we're proud to be partnered with them on this. 12 trips, drawn one a month. You win a trip, guess what? Your ticket goes back in the hat. At that draw, we also give out $200 and a $100 cash prize. That goes back on the hat, so you can keep winning. Although we do say you only win 2 trips. If you win the trip of the month, let's say you won the trip for drawn on May 2nd to go to Spain. But you said, been there to Spain, you can take the cash equivalent of the travel voucher and go wherever you want. And there's essentially not much of a time limit. The travel agents are like 2 years on that, but they're flexible on it. So that's the way it is. The first draw is April 4th, so our challenge is to get all of our tickets sold by April 3rd. On the cards, you'll see there's a website there. Be happy to take your money today. I've got tickets with me.
I have some more.
But we've also got online sales. So, and what I've done in some of the other clubs is, I'm not unwilling to trade tickets. You buy a ticket on mine, I might buy a ticket on one of your projects too. I've just done that this week, traded with a couple people. So,
well, you can get awful poor.
I know, but hey, it's all in the cause. Would you like to add anything, Margaret?
Not on. No. Go off to Spain, Morocco, Dublin. Someone said something about Irish in a couple of days. Las Vegas, Cuba, Panama. Support mental health in Wilmot Township.
On the reverse side, by the way, there's also another event that we do, our Brouhaha. It's a great event, craft beer and food sampling. So, but we really want to talk about the trip of the month today. Any questions? And the final comment is, we're always trying to get Wilmot to that full club status. You know, anybody out in that Wilmot area that would like to be exposed to Rotary, let us know. Okay?
We meet on Thursday morning.
Thursday morning. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess I'll call on David Barth to introduce David Barth. Yeah. Oh, she wants to do the 50-50. I guess I better.
Is this your trip?
We want to give the money away.
Brian, you want to pull 3 tickets out of there for me?
3 tickets.
Pull mine, Brian.
There is
Oh, there's not much.
1, 2, 3. There you go. You don't think it matters, does it?
Not if they should. We don't have to get the lights right off, so that.
The mammoth pot today is $112.50.
With triple digits.
And so, if you are got a ticket with the last 4 numbers of 8217, you are the first. Try your
Okay.
Give them away somewhere.
Sorry about that. How about 8211?
Lucky table.
Lucky table, but it's not lucky people. Yeah.
Over half the time. It's like every.
Oh, sorry about that.
It's okay.
8208.
cute.
It is that table.
Everybody from the same table?
Yeah, nice try. That's what happens when you know where you put it.
I will, I'll come over.
On the other hand, you had the most losers per capita.
Okay.
And the pot will grow. Now I'll call on David Barth to introduce David Barth.
So we had promised some time ago that we were going to share a little bit about the build. So I've got Ed and Kathy. Oh, this thing really does come apart. It does, yeah. So I have Ed and Kathy with me today because they came with us on the trip down to Honduras last year. So I'm just going to start off by quickly showing the video that we made as a result. Kathy shot a lot of these photographs. I shot photographs. We had a ton of pictures that we kind of made into this fast video. So I'll start with just playing that. And you see the rough cut.
Set on the screen, Dave.
That's not up? Oh.
Thanks.
I will.
No, go ahead.
I have no idea.
Were you being chased by these?
Yeah.
It might be a pad.
What do you mean?
Oh.
We're postponing into
Yes.
Look silly.
Mike Holmes couldn't do it that quick.
I can do that.
time-lapse part of that was 1,690 photographs that were kind of put into a program that kind of like used them for a single frame. So that was fun. Let's see if we can get the other parts of this up. I'll try to get the PowerPoint to see if it works. It seems I'm a little
Yeah,
bit...
just close it. Keep going right up to the top corner. Yeah. There.
There you go.
Okay. Isn't that working? Yeah. So we're going to start off with some photos that Kathy brought along that she sent to me, and she has some comments that she'd like to make about this trip that we took. So this was last January, I guess from the 7th to the 7th to the 21st, something like that.
2 weeks.
Okay, so I guess what David had asked us to do is to give some impressions about our trip to Honduras. It certainly was a trip of a lifetime in the sense that you really got an opportunity to do a community building type of experience with the community that we were visiting in Honduras. And this picture here just shows the kitchen of one of the women in Honduras. So that's a typical kitchen that you would see, and she's got some corn there that she is cooking up. So that was an experience, was just to go into some of the villages and see firsthand how they lived within the community. What struck me the most about Honduras was the warmth and the generosity of the people. And I couldn't help but want to take a number of photographs of the people within that community because they were just such warm, generous, caring people. Certainly the people that we stayed with in the village were really warm and welcoming, and they prepared some really great meals. And I think we've got some pictures of that coming up. This little boy watched us. He was across the street from where we were doing the build, and he was watching us, not on a daily basis, but he'd come out every once in a while. And I didn't know until the very end of the trip, on the last few days of the build, that this little boy was actually going to be attending the school that we were building for him. So it was really neat that he got to experience and see us building his school. Coffee, lots of coffee being grown in Honduras, and this was out drying on the street right in front of where we were building. The one thing that I really appreciated about Al Wygood, who was facilitated this trip for us, was that when we did orders for coffee, he made sure that we ordered coffee from a woman who was disabled in the community, because he wanted us to be able to support her and her livelihood in making coffee for the community. So we could have gone and bought from other people, but the one thing I liked about Al was that he really wanted to make sure we gave back and supported the individuals in the community, especially people with disabilities, which of course is close to my heart. Again, this is just more pictures of the children. We had an opportunity when we had some downtime. Jeannie and I went walking up the road and up to the top of the hill to kind of get a sense of the community that we were building in. And these kids were just out playing, so it was a great opportunity to get some photographs. And again, this is typical housing in the village where we were staying. So again, a picture of one of the homes. We had an opportunity to go to Copan, which was on the border of Guatemala and Honduras. And we went up to, a few of us went to Macaw Mountain. So this was a bird sanctuary where we got to go and take a look at the native birds in Honduras. So this was a photo op that we all took part in.
Do those birds have tipped wings?
Yes.
They're clipped, eh?
Yeah.
The ones in the park weren't.
No, not in the park. That's a toucan. And this, I was fortunate to be one of the first to come down with Montezuma's Revenge, I think on the third day. So it gave me an opportunity to stay in our accommodations, be close to the bathroom, and yet taking an opportunity to photograph some of the birds that came by our house. And there was one-way glass, so the bird was tapping on the kitchen window there, and that's an Altamira Oriole. The bird wildlife was spectacular. was on a tree. I don't know what that is. So this is Montezuma or Pindolo. Across the street from where we were was an orange tree, and the number of birds in the tree was unbelievable. So there was Montezuma or Pindolo, and then there was the chestnut-headed or Pindolos. And again, another day when I was walking around the area, there was an orange tree. It was absolutely covered with dozens of Pindolos, and these are quite large birds. And the flora and fauna, absolutely, the geography of the land was spectacular. And that's, I think this is where you pick up, David.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I really was left with was Al Wygood's community building through the building of these schools. I mean, he really impacts the community one school at a time. And here he was, 87 years old at the time, he's 88 now, and working right alongside with us building the school. So it really gave me an impression of what you should be doing in retirement. So.
Did everybody hear the birds?
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah, the birds down there were astounding. I just had a couple-minute recording. That's just sitting out in Al's porch type of thing, and that's what you would hear. And so that's one of the things that drew Kathy to kind of take a lot of pictures of birds. Anyone know what this is? Yeah. This is how cocoa grows. And it's funny. It's not at the end of a little branch or anything like that. It actually grows right out of the main parts of the tree, right out of the main kind of stems and trunks and stuff like that. That's where the cocoa. So when it comes out of the pod like that, they have to ferment it first, and then they have to dry it, then they have to roast it, break it, winnow it, and then grind it. So there's a lot to making cocoa. I'm learning all about that now. We went to the ruins, and I think you may have heard that. This was a real common sight to see, as Kathy with her camera, right? She never went anywhere without it. But the ruins were really quite spectacular, and they're some of the finest ruins in that part of the country. So I don't really have any pictures of the main pyramid, but the main pyramid, every face of every step on the main staircase up the pyramid has hieroglyphs on it. And it's the only pyramid like that in all of Central America. So it's really quite a fascinating place to go. This is the ball court. And if anyone saw the movie El Dorado with their kids, it's an animated one where they play this ball game, but they end up having to use their hips and stuff and bump these balls to get up. If you take a look at the tops of each of these slanted spots, there's these little hoops. And in this case, the hoop is actually a big parrot, and the hoop is its mouth, and it has to actually go through there. But it's one of the most well-preserved ball courts that there is in all of Latin America. It's a very nice place to see. This was some of the manual labor we did. You could see that I needed to have some of that manual labor because I was putting on too many beans and tortillas, apparently. I think that was, but that was really hard work. So that's like a 25, 30 pound thing, and you just pick it up and mash it down. That's how they're tamping the earth. This is how we moved the blocks. We had a chain gang. We had to move 1,200 blocks. That was actually probably the hardest day of work. Would you guys say?
Yeah.
Yeah. So 1,200 blocks off the back. We had to kind of move them over to where we were working off the truck. And doing the chain gang was really tough. We would switch directions every once in a while, so that instead of going this way, you'd step over to this side and kind of move it this way, so that you didn't twist your back the same direction the whole time. There was jobs that weren't as tough. Ed's filling the space between blocks there, and I've got that little facing block in there to prevent the stuff from coming out the front, and he's preventing it from coming out the back as he fills that. And Jeannie's got a couple of these little pointy blocks. They have to kind of rub between the blocks to try and make it so that you have a nice finish in there. So these are some of the lighter weight jobs. This was the cushiest job of the whole time. That's why Ed's smiling so hard. Actually, I was just really comfortable. So we do our own bending of steel, right? So when we're bending the little parts to be able to tie the rebar cages, that's one of the jobs that had to be done. And it's one of the jobs we've had someone come down that had to use a walker, but wanted to still help on a site. And it's kind of like, well, you know, there are jobs that we can give them to be able to do this type of stuff. There, you can just see that, you know, lifting. So it's just a combination of a whole bunch of different things that you would do. There's Ed kind of just bringing some water over to mix more mortar. The food. This isn't a particular story about Ed or anything like that, but the food is very, very local. I mean, you're definitely living with the 5-kilometer diet or whatever it would be in that area. So everything that we had to eat on our plates was, you know, tortillas that are made from the corn that's grown right on the property. The beans were there. The fish were from the lake that's just around the corner. You know, so everything that we did have, it was very rustic, very local, very healthy, you know, and not processed in the least. Although a couple days we did have pancakes. Yeah. And I think if people kind of appreciate pancakes once in a while, so you're not having a savory breakfast. When the school was finished, this was kind of the first chance that Al had to take a picture of it, and he always sends me because sending photographs from down there is terrible. So this one here is terrible in terms of its size. In order to blow it up to be able to see it on here, you can see it's pretty foggy or not very clear. That's a picture of the inside of the school with the kids in there, and another one. So that's basically it for what I wanted to share. Now Ed's got some photographs here that he wants to share. And
before you move, David, what was the floor of that school?
It started off as being just concrete, and then they put in some tile. So they do tile the floor with like an 18-inch square tile. It's very big. It doesn't take very long to do it.
Ceramic tile?
It's a ceramic tile. Yep.
Where did your photographs go? They're right here.
I'm not sure how to get to these.
Just drag it over here.
I don't have the.
Guys with crutches.
Well, you do
Come
that
on.
one, So when I was preparing for this, I sort of did the same thing that Kathy did. I sort of reminisced about what happened, what did I learn there. And the one thing that struck me when I first got there is just the happiness of the people. There's no doubt that they have very limited resources. Like everything is quite primitive. They have very little of anything, of material resources, and but they're still happy. And it just struck me about the excess that we have here in Canada and North America. We have 1,000 times what they have in terms of material possessions, and yet they're quite happy. Very limited resources, and incredibly friendly. I think what they do is, because they don't have a lot of things, they really value family and friends. So you could not walk anywhere that someone wouldn't smile and greet you. Just walking down the road or the path to the work site that we worked on, people would always say hola, and you know, they'd greet you, and we didn't even speak the same language, but they were always very friendly. The second day we were there, we went to this place, which is a school that was built. It was some distance sort of up in the hills from where we were, and a beautiful school. Dave, would you mind just sort of clicking through the pictures, and I'll just briefly talk about some of them. So this is a site off the back porch of the school, and you can see that's a little community across a creek. There are chickens and pigs and all kinds of things there, but that's typical housing, you know, sort of a metal roof and often one-room house, mud floor. And it's the same picture off the back of the school. So they have really primitive homes. And that's a picture of the school again. So this is very similar to the one we built. Just keep going through. This is the people in that community up in the hills were very welcoming. We went and visited, and they all came out of their houses and talked to us, and the kids were very friendly. But part of this trip was we went to a village where they had built a kitchen, or rebuilt a home for somebody because some elderly woman's home had fallen down. And this is what you see when you go to these communities. There was some nice things like a church, and they had a yard where they played basketball. But there were also areas where you could see quite a bit of significant poverty. And so the light really went on as to why we were there. And then these are just pictures of the build. There's Dave holding some rebar, and you've seen all these through through Dave's video. This is a picture of the school that was existing there. That's a picture of the house that was across the street from the school. Kathy showed you a picture of the little guy that watched the construction of the school. That's where he lived. This is a little nicer home just further down the street with the beans in the front. There's our pile of sand where we mixed we used to mix the mortar. Another home on the same street. Another home on the same street.
That's the mayor's house.
Yeah. So some of the houses, they were big on fences and concrete block walls to protect their space, and they all had dogs. So the few possessions they did have, they tried to protect them because I guess there's a tendency to walk off with their neighbor's stuff. And this is a high school that was built in the same community that we were in, and this was a beautiful property. The kids would come from miles and miles away to attend this. It was a huge privilege.